Hello and welcome. This is your Mars retrograde video. So back in August, the 20th of August, Mars moved into the sign of Gemini. Now Mars is staying in Gemini until next year, March of 2023. But what is important is that Mars is going to go retrograde, and Mars goes retrograde in the sign of Gemini on the 30th of October 2022 and will stay retrograde until the 12th of January 2023. And this is very important for all of us collectively. See, Mars is ruled by Aries and Scorpio. Scorpio is ruled by Pluto, but it's co-ruled with Mars. So Mars rules both Aries and Scorpio. So if you have those placements anywhere in your chart, this definitely impacts you. Especially Mars is going retrograde in the sign of Gemini. So all mutable signs will be impacted by this Mars retrograde, and those signs are Gemini, Virgo, Sagittarius, and Pisces will be challenged during this Mars retrograde, especially. Now, if you have Libra, Aquarius, Gemini as well, these are the air signs. So especially when it comes to Aquarius and Libra, they might find some strength during Mars retrograding in a fellow air sign. It might be a bit different, where they might find a bit more opportunities as compared to the rest of the signs. Mars is also going retrograde on the 30th of October. And now prior to that, on the 25th of October, there's a Scorpio solar eclipse, new moon solar eclipse. And on the 8th of November, there's a lunar eclipse in Taurus. So those eclipses are going to be affecting the fixed signs, right? Scorpio, Leo, Taurus, of course, and Aquarius. So those are the fixed signs that are going through a lot of change, and it's mostly impacting them, but the eclipses impact all of us and take us into the next 6 months. However, those are the signs that are mostly impacted because the eclipses are happening in fixed signs, and Mars goes retrograde right in the middle, right there in eclipse season. Now, eclipse seasons are already so chaotic, and Mars brings in this energy also, misdirected anger. Let's think of Mars as the god of war. That's what it is known in mythology. So the soldier that goes to battle. When Mars is retrograde, it can make us feel very angry. It can make us feel very tense. We don't know what, action to take because it is retrograding in the sign of Gemini. But Mars rules the day-to-day action that we take, what we feel motivated about, what we feel passionate about. We can find that we do not have the same passion that we generally have. We can find ourselves feeling lacking motivation and lacking the physical energy. How we get up in the morning is the energy of Mars. That's what it is, to rise, right? To get up, to feel like, okay, this is my day. This is what I got to do. We feel like we can't get up. We feel tired. We feel worn down. And also with the Mars retrograde, like I said, anger, especially misdirected anger, trying to do too many things at once, getting confused because you're doing too many things at once. A lot of pressure and a lot of anxiety put on you because Mars is retrograding in the sign of Gemini. So Gemini is like, I'm doing this and I'm doing that and I got this to do. The mutable energy of taking on a lot. Now Mars is feeling very much like, I have too much to do in this retrograde and I don't have the energy to do it. The misdirected anger can happen where you have an argument with someone close to you. Say you could be having an argument with a family member and then you come home and you take it out on your spouse. Or you could be having an argument at work and you come home and then you take it out on your family members or someone close to you. Misdirected anger. And how that happens is, at the time, we'll suppress our anger. Mars retrograde is about suppressing anger, keeping it in, stewing in your emotions of anger and frustration and aggravation and why are things not working out, and then exploding out of nowhere. And that's hard. That's the hardest thing about a Mars retrograde, is that all of a sudden, all that tension just gets let out in the wrong place, wrong time, and it's inappropriate. And you feel, oh my goodness, do not pick fights. during a Mars retrograde, because you will lose. That is it. If you are the one to initiate a fight during a Mars retrograde, you come up short. It's almost like you're not even sure what you're fighting about, or you might be thinking, I have a major point. However, it's not the time to pick up a fight. It's not the time to do those things. Mars rules arguments and disputes. So all of those things, it's where we set boundaries too. It's Mars. It's like, that's where we set boundaries. It'll be very difficult to set boundaries. Arguments and disputes happen during a Mars retrograde. We lack the energy and motivation. We can feel unwell physically because we just don't have the physical energy, drive, vitality. Mars is that. If you think about exercising and moving, you know, you're running, you're jogging, you're cycling. That is all Mars. It's adrenaline pumping. That is Mars. When it's in retrograde, we lack that drive. We lack that adrenaline. We lack that push. And we got to be more cautious with ourselves. Accidents can happen during a Mars retrograde, especially road accidents, because it's in the sign of Gemini, and Gemini rules small distance travel. So be aware of that. Drive cautiously. Watch out for road rage, right? You know, this is a time where you can say your protection prayers, you know, pray, get in the space of where you focus on what you're doing, and you be aware that everybody else might not be aware. They might not be aware that Mars is in retrograde, and they might be letting out their anger on the road, as opposed to where they should be letting their anger out. Maybe someone else angered them. This is the thing that we need to all be aware of when Mars is in retrograde. It's not saying don't go anywhere, but be cautious, be wary, be focused. Keep all your senses like, okay, this is what I'm doing. Does not be the time to drive angry. It's not be the time to, you know, do things in a rush and a haste, because Mars is retrograde. We do not have the ability to take the action as we generally would. It's like we'd want to do something, and next thing we do the wrong thing, the thing that we didn't expect we would do all of a sudden. Communication. Words can be very difficult because Gemini is an air sign, and air signs rule communication, and this is where words can be just coming at you. Information can be just coming at you. Gossip can be just coming at you. And these things can be very overwhelming during a Mars retrograde. So what do? We take a minute, we take a breath, we take some time to stop, slow down, because all retrogrades do encourage us to slow down, to reflect, to go within, to take some time out. It's not the great time to start anything new. There's not be time, oh, I have this brilliant idea, let me launch it. Oh, I want to take on this responsibility and that responsibility and that responsibility. And then next thing you know, you are so lost in what you are doing that you don't do anything. So take a minute and take some time during a Mars retrograde to actually slow down. That's what it wants you to do, to go within, to try to figure out your feelings and what's frustrating you. It's working us for a real long time. 30th of October all the way of January 12th next year, 2023. So we are really in a state of reworking our day-to-day action and what action we take upon. You can launch something that you wanted to do a long time. So maybe prior you had a project you wanted to do. Now you can initiate it. Can't be something brand new. I wouldn't suggest getting into any relationships during this time, brand new relationships, especially like you just met this person and wow. You must understand that Mars retrograde, well, Mars, not even the retrograde per se, Mars itself rules desire. We can find ourselves feeling more drawn to lustful situations and not building on solid relationships. If you want to be involved in that, that's fine. That's, you know, you are aware this is the action that you're taking. But if you're wanting something solid and long lasting, this wouldn't be the ideal time to get into any kind of, you know, relationships that are brand new, because it'll be built solely on lust and desire and not really upon how you truly feel and what you truly want. This is more a time to rework ourselves when it comes to our anger and frustration, to not react, to take some time out before we react, to see what we're reacting upon, to actually, I would suggest, find moments to vent your anger out. So what I mean by vent your anger out, either talk to a friend that you can vent with, if you have someone close to you, if there's a life coach, a therapist, a psychologist, someone that you can vent a bit of your anger to, even if it's a trusted friend or a family member, someone you can share with, that you feel safe with, that if something's upsetting you, you can do that. Another thing to do would be, if something is upsetting you, try to not react, think about it, yes, but then respond. Say what you need to say and then move forward. Don't get engrossed, and because with this Mars retrograde, it can pull us back into it. It wants to pull us into arguments. It wants to pull us into conflict, and it wants us to stay there. So not releasing your anger where you suppress it will leave you stewing in it and exploding. And then also, if you have something to say, say it. Make sure you're not reacting and you thought it through, and then let it go. Write it out, write and burn it to let it go. Take a good walk, move, physically move yourself. A good way to move anger through the body is to move your body, right? It actually helps. This would be a good time if you have a punching bag, or if you go to the gym, to do any of those physical things to release some steam. That's what we're looking to do with Mars retrograde. We don't want to let all this tension, because we will be feeling anxious and tense. There will be a square with Neptune in Pisces, because Mars is retrograde in Gemini, both mutable signs, and that can create a lot of confusion. So it won't be the best time to take any action. Separation. See, Mars rules separations and boundaries. So during this time, when you do try to implement boundaries, it might be more difficult. And if you do try to separate from a person, separate from a situation, separate from your work, whatever you try to separate from, it will feel like you will have to come back to it during the Mars retrograde, especially, or keep trying to pull you back into it because it's retrograde. Mars is very good at separating. Mars is very good at boundaries, but in the retrograde motion, it's a bit harder for us to set those boundaries and separations from the things that we truly want to separate from. So what do? We go within. We make that this is in our heart and mind. This is what we want to separate from. And each time it comes back, we keep separating. Great time for cord cuttings and letting go in that essence. This Mars retrograde, like I said, it can be very, like I said, you know, you need to be very wary of the people that you hang around with. If there's a lot of drama, right? If it's a lot of chaotic energy, if people that you hang around with are prone to argue, prone to create conflict, prone to want to make their point across and for you to hear it, it will irritate you more during this time. So take a moment, take a break, you know, be aware of the people that you're around, be aware of yourself, be aware of your surroundings. Like I said, the accidents can happen, especially with Mars retrograde. I've noticed that's one time people are more prone physically to maybe slip because they weren't conscious and they had so much on their mind. This is where we unconsciously take actions that sometimes can hurt us. So you were chopping with a knife and you accidentally chopped you because you were so engrossed in your mind about the, you know, conflicted work. So do you see? That's what it means. And because it's in Gemini, which is duality, being able to do two things at once, we feel distracted and like we are here, but we're not here. We're thinking of this and that, and we're not being aware of what we're physically doing in the physical world with our actual body. And we having this happen during eclipse season, which eclipses shake up and change all of our lives for the next 6 months. What happens during eclipse season, we keep coming back to it and working through it during the next 6 months. So having this Mars retrograde happening too will also be picking up the energy of anger, frustration, boiling point, having arguments and combative words, gossip. So be aware of the words that you use and be aware of the words that come from other people. This would be the time to disengage. Even though it's hard to separate during a Mars retrograde, try as much as you can. And you know how you can try? By being aware. Being aware that something is pulling you in is where you can actually take a moment to take a step back. Like I said, all of us are affected by this energy. Aries and Scorpio, most definitely. They both are ruled by Mars, right? The mutable signs, because Mars is retrograding the mutable signs. So that's Pisces who will be challenged, that's Sagittarius who will be challenged, that's Gemini that will be challenged, and Virgo will be challenged during this Mars retrograde. The air signs can find a bit of opportunity and a bit of energy during this time because it's happening in Gemini, a fellow air sign. And the fixed signs are already incorporating so much of energy because of the eclipses. 25th of October, the solar eclipse in Scorpio, and on the 8th of November, the blood moon lunar eclipse in Taurus of 2022. So they're already going through so much, the fixed signs, and Leo and Aquarius are both fixed signs, so they're also brought into it. So this is literally impacting us all. So take a moment, take a step back, release any stress or tension within your body. Movement is key during a Mars retrograde. Be aware of the communication. Like I said, it'll come across harsh, but as long as you deal with things, and I mean, don't suppress it because that can lead to boiling point, but take some time, then come back to it, deal with it, say what you need to say and move on. That will be the best thing you can possibly do during a Mars retrograde. And you can definitely tackle all projects and things that you want to do a long time ago. Now you can complete it. Mars retrogrades are great for completing actions of prior things we wanted to do previously that maybe we lost the spark or we lost the energy. Now we can actually bring it into our lives. Thank you so much for watching. Do like and subscribe. My website's linked down below if you'd like a reading, as well as a link for appreciation of these videos.